Welcome to the Contrarians and the Grants Rock Warehouse. Tonight, I'd like to welcome Tim Durling to the channel. He is the author of the latest Fleetwood Mac book, The Sound That Haunts You, a beginner's companion to Fleetwood Mac. If you're new to Fleetwood Mac, you're going to need this book. Heck, if you're not new to them, you'll need this book. Let's do it.
Grant is changing the world one track at a time on Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to the Contrarians and the Grants Rock Warehouse. We're going to post this on both channels in case you miss it, but we have Tim Durling here today, Canadian author, rock music enthusiast, influencer, radio personality. What can this man not do? Tim Durling, how are you?
Long division gives me a hard time.
Not one of your fortes.
No. I'm doing good, Grant. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Well, Tim has written a number of books. We've always had Tim back on here. And of course, Tim comes on the Contrarians. Tim comes on my show. He's done Red on Black, The Listener's Guide to Sammy Hagar, Down for the Count, the Y&T album review, Sing Me Away, book on Night Ranger. And of course, he's the author of Unspooled, which explores history, culture, collecting, the whole thing. You're into 8-track tapes? That is your Bible. Tonight, he has a new book, The Sound That Haunts You, Beginner's Companion to Fleetwood Mac. We're here to talk about it a bit. Actually, to turn you on to it, maybe you want to go check this out yourself. And Tim, you're flickering.
I am flickering. Yeah, I don't know what to do about that.
All right. Well, anyway, we'll go with it. So anyway, new book, The Sound That Haunts You, The Beginner's Companion to Fleetwood Mac. Tim, welcome to the show again. I already said that before, but damn it, what an intro.
I feel very welcomed by now. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So this book, it's kind of falls along the line of the books that you've had in the past, but why did you go down that road and decide that you wanted to do something on Fleetwood Mac? I mean, it's not Night Ranger, it's not Y&T.
Yeah, no, it's definitely off my beaten path a little bit. Even though that, yeah, you're right. Format wise, it's similar to my previous books. It's actually most like the Sammy Hagar book because this one's all me. It's just my 2 cents, my opinions about each of Fleetwood Mac's studio albums. It kind of started with, I'm going to call it an offhanded comment that my mother-in-law made because my mother-in-law is a huge Fleetwood Mac fan. So subsequently, my wife is also a Fleetwood Mac fan. She says she basically was listening to Fleetwood Mac in the womb, which that makes sense considering.
Okay.
But yeah, no, my mother-in-law says, Tim, when are you going to write me a Fleetwood Mac book? And she was kind of kidding, I don't even know if she remembers saying it, but it stuck with me because, as you know, usually if I write a book on a band or an artist, it's somebody like Y&T or Night Ranger that's never had any books written on them. And there have been a ton of Fleetwood Mac books. I mean, there's been books written just about the Rumors album. What can I add to that? Well, I got thinking about it. It's like, well, if I was going to write a Fleetwood Mac book, how would I do it? And I got thinking about the fact that really I'm still kind of a newcomer to really listening to this band. Obviously, I know who they were.
Right.
You can't, you'd have to be in a cave to, but no one in I didn't grow up listening to the music. Nobody in my family had any of the albums. It wasn't until once I had started listening to the top 40 radio, the first Fleetwood Mac album I remember coming out new was Tango in the Night in 1987. So they were kind of always on my peripheral. I was always aware of them. Wasn't always aware that they had such a long career leading up to the Buckingham Nicks era. I first became aware of that when Aerosmith put their box set out in 91 called Pandora's Box, and there's a version of a song called Rattlesnake Shake on there, and I listened to it. It's this raunchy blues rock song, and apparently it's a Fleetwood Mac song, and I'm like, what? I'm like, this doesn't sound like what I know as Fleetwood Mac, and who's Peter Green? I've never heard of him. So yeah, that's when I realized that there was a lot more to this. This band had a lot of history. So that was always kind of on the peripheral. And, when my wife and I started seeing each other, she was listening to a lot of Fleetwood Mac, and I started to hear a lot of songs that weren't just the radio singles. Not that there's anything wrong with the radio singles, but I started hearing songs like Never Going Back Again and you know, the entire albums, right? All of Rumors, all of the self-titled, and I realized that this stuff is really good. I can see why this band is so beloved by people, but man, is there a lot to dig into if you really want to get into this band. And I've usually never been the type of person to just have one or two albums by a group and say that's it. I'm usually a completist. And with Fleetwood Mac, that leads you down all sorts of rabbit holes, all the Bob Welch years stuff, the Peter Green stuff, the post Buckingham Nicks lineup stuff when it's kind of fragmented. So I thought, yeah, I'm still kind of a newcomer to this myself, but if I was going to write a book that somebody that was curious about maybe diving deeper into this band, how would they even know where to start? So I thought, let's approach it that way. And that's why I called it, instead of a listener's guide, I called it a beginner's companion. So it's like, maybe you've got Rumors, maybe you've got Tango, maybe you've got The Dance, maybe you've got the 88 Greatest Hits, maybe you've got two or three of those, but you're like, I keep hearing about all these other songs and what else is out there, what songs are on which album. So yeah, that's really what got me to do a book like this, because yeah, it's definitely not obscure in the least. Although some of the early albums still are obscure. So I just wanted to shine a light on the entire catalog.
Yeah, it seems like if you look at back, it's like totally different band. You got the Bob Welch years, you got the Peter Green years, Danny Kerwin. That's like a totally different band. Same rhythm section, different band.
That's the only constant throughout, right? And actually, John McVie didn't play bass on every song. There's a couple early songs where a guy named Bob Brunning was the bass player, and I joke in the book that Fleetwood Bob just doesn't have the same
Fleetwood
ring.
Bob, it doesn't.
But yeah, I mean, it's almost a different lineup on every single album. Oddly enough, until you get to the '75 self-titled album, and as tumultuous as that lineup was, it's still the most consistent and steady lineup that Fleetwood Mac ever had, because that's the lineup that brought the world Fleetwood Mac, the world at large, right? But yeah, it's completely different bands. People talk about Van Halen being two different bands with Dave or Sammy. Well, this is that times infinity. I mean, you could pinpoint so many different songs on those early albums, play them for someone and say, who is this? And they would guess everybody but Fleetwood Mac, because there's none of that vocal recognition there at all. So yeah, it was a lot of fun doing it too. It was a lot of fun going back and re-listening to all of these albums. The part that gave me the hardest time, the hardest part of putting this book together, was sorting out all of the songs that weren't part of any one studio album. And there was a lot of that in the early days. A lot of songs were written as standalone singles. In the UK, a compilation came out called The Pious Bird of Good Omen. But in the US, or North America, we got something called English Rose, which was kind of the same, but not. The second album, Mr. Wonderful, didn't originally come out in North America. So I tried to cover all of the officially released Fleetwood Mac songs that there were. So I may have missed one or two that was on some BBC thing, but I think I caught most of them, B-sides and songs like that. So I'm pleased with how it came out, and without sounding completely full of myself, I think it's an easy read.
Well, that's important, I think. How do you, what makes you, when you take on a new project, what makes you decide, because you've done books where it's a collaborative effort, where you have like a panel discussion and you have a lot of different input from a lot of people. And what made you decide to approach this kind of on your own? I mean, is it the music? Is it the band that kind of makes that decision in your mind, or your approach? I don't know.
Well, with the Sammy Hagar book, which Red on Black, which concentrates on his solo career, I had so many things I wanted to say that I've wanted to say for a long time, because I've just been a fan of him for such a long time, and those early studio albums, especially of his, don't get any recognition. There's an odd connection, because on his very first album, 9 on a 10 scale, he does a song called China, which is a Bob Welch song. It's not a Fleetwood Mac song, but there's a connection there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And boy, I've gained a whole new appreciation for that era of Fleetwood Mac too. There's some gems there in Future Games and Bare Trees and Mystery to Me. And some of the worst album covers ever. But
Well,
heroes are hard to find, man. That's a rough one. But anyway, the reason I did this one myself, I think it might have been that personal thing, the personal connection, because it was because of my wife Sarah that I really started getting into this band. This is not a band that would have been on my radar, but I sort of dove right in, and also the fact that my mother-in-law suggested it, in a roundabout kind of way. So I just said, okay, well, let's hear what I think about these albums. Somebody that comes from more of a hard rock, classic rock kind of background, because I really don't know how you define Fleetwood Mac, because they're no one sound. They're kind of all over the place genre-wise, even within an album, right? Like, never mind all the drastic shifts throughout the years. So it's sort of to guide people, into this, this world of this band is, the universe that they create. And so yeah, I wanted to do it myself and get my thoughts down, but also hopefully give people an idea of what to expect from each of these albums. And I'm very honest at the beginning of it. I have a lot of respect and admiration for blues as a genre, but I'm not a blues aficionado. And I can only listen to those early albums, like the first couple, until the songs all start to sound the same to me. And I know that's sacrilege to people that,
oh my God, the Peter Green people are gonna have a fit.
Now I say that, but then Play On, the third album, the last one with Peter Green, I love that.
That's a great record.
Fantastic. That's got some blues on it. It's got Like Crying, One Sunny Day, but it's mixed. It's got so many other textures with it. And it just marvels me. Like, I marvel at the fact of where they came from and how they morphed over the years through the different personnel that had been with them to the juggernaut, the commercial juggernaut they became. So as commercial as some of their albums are, some of them are decidedly non-commercial, and there are some that aren't very well known that have songs on them that could have been hit singles. So it was fun doing it. One thing I did do with this that was a little bit different, I think, than the other. All of my books have been sort of album review books, except for the Unspooled one. But when I was putting this one together, I did not do the chapters in chronological order. I wanted to make sure that it didn't sound like I was going in order. I jumped back and forth all over the place to make sure that I was coming into each album fresh. And I think that really helped the chapters from sounding the same, because it's hard to write about, your writing gets to sound the same if you're writing about an album that's so completely different than the last one you wrote about. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, Rumors was one of the last ones that I wrote about. And the other reason for that is, what am I going to say about an album like Rumors?
Wow.
But it's one of those. It's one of those evergreen albums that will always be for sale, and there'll always be a remastered version of it, and generations will keep discovering it. Yeah. But I just wanted people to know about, hey, that's great. By the way, that was their 11th album. I mean, it's so weird how different the music industry is. But between 1968 and 1975,
it's a lot of records.
They put out 10 studio albums, plus compilations of songs that weren't on any of those albums. Plus, they had that whole blues session in Chicago. So yeah, it was a prolific period. There are quite a few B-sides, quite a few extra songs. So yeah, I wanted to cover all of it. And another thing I wanted to do is, I talked about the album that Lindsay and Christine did in 2017. Because as far as I'm concerned, that's a Fleetwood Mac album. John McVie and Mick Fleetwood are on that. Only Stevie is missing from the best-known lineup. And I have to think that there were contractual things with Stevie or her camp that prevented that from being called Fleetwood Mac, because obviously it would have had a wider reach. I think that's a pretty good album. Now, in 2003, they did the album Say You Will, which came out as a Fleetwood Mac album without Christine. So I don't understand why the reverse wasn't true. So I wanted, as far as I'm concerned, that's a Fleetwood Mac album in all but name. So I wanted to cover it and say, hey, if you like any of the stuff, listen to this album because this is just the next logical thing. And so far, it's the last thing that's come out of that camp. But yeah, it was fun once I got on a roll and figured out the format I wanted to use. And the other thing about the book that I enjoyed doing, partially because I did write it myself, those books are obviously shorter. The panel books, getting the feedback from people, not only is it you're getting great feedback, but you're also getting content. The book's filling out. When you write it yourself, it's going to be a little shorter. So I said, well, I got to add something to this. So I got the idea because there are so many Fleetwood Mac songs that have been covered by tons of people, all genres of music, right? And I thought, so many people have covered Songbird or The Chain or Landslide or Oh Well, if we're going to go back farther. But I thought, I wonder if I could find 100 different songs by 100 different artists, like 100 different Fleetwood Mac songs being covered. And so with the help of Discogs and YouTube, I did. I saw there's a section in here of 100 different covers of Fleetwood Mac songs by artists ranging from Natalie Cole to Leif Garrett to Judas Priest to Kick-Axe, Smashing Pumpkins, and all points in between. And that was really interesting, just the breadth of artists that were influenced by this band at one point or another. And plus, it was a chance for me to reiterate, by the way, Carlos Santana did not write Black Magic Woman. That is a Peter Green song. It's a Fleetwood Mac cover. But he really made it his own, but that's not where it started. So yeah, that was a lot of fun putting that together. So I started with their first album and went chronologically all of the songs that have been covered throughout the years. And it's all over the place for genres and time periods. I mean, I've got French language songs, I've got reggae covers, there's all kinds of stuff in here. That was a lot of fun because I learned a lot.
Well, when you were diving into this, is there any particular period when you look at the whole catalog and it's so vast, was there a certain period that you really have a fondness for or maybe more of appreciation of?
Definitely the Bob Welch period, because that was such an important link between the early blues stuff and the band that most of the world would come to know. He was a native Californian, so the quintessential California soft rock band, right? So here in 1971, they're starting to make music like that. Like they've still got like sort of a foot in the blues because they still had Kirwan or Kerwin for a couple of albums. And then they had Bob Weston for an album or so. And they had that Dave Walker, which didn't make any sense at all. He was a good singer, but he didn't fit the band. But so Bob Welch is already thinking in this commercially minded way. I mean, Sentimental Lady, which he had a top 10 single with in 77, originally appeared on Bare Trees in 72. It's pretty much the same song. He didn't do a lot to it. So why wasn't that a hit then? I don't know.
Probably
and there are songs. Songs on those early Fleetwood.
Well,
go ahead.
If you think about this, the Hypnotized version that eventually came out also had Stevie and Lindsay on it. So I don't know.
Sentimental Lady.
Sentimental Lady.
Yeah.
What did I say? Hypnotized?
Hypnotized. Yeah, and Hypnotized is an amazing song. Great song. But that it's true. Bob's
do you think that had anything to do with it? Because I think, didn't Lindsay produce that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's weird. Like the Bob's Sentimental Lady that came out in 77 was a top 10 single, and it's more Fleetwood Mac. Yeah, because I think Lindsay produced it. You can hear Christine plain as day on the chorus, and I almost think that McVie and Fleetwood play on it too. Like the personnel is right there. It's practically Fleetwood Mac.
And in that era and that sound,
yeah,
I think that had probably a lot to do with it. I know we're on a Bob Welch tangent, but I think look at it. You look at Lindsey Buckingham.
Yeah,
Fleetwood Mac never would have been. They couldn't have done it with just Stevie. Lindsay
No,
has
they
the
were.
magic. He just knows
Yep.
what to do.
His
The-
yeah, he was the mad scientist. He was an arranging. He thought like six steps ahead of everyone as far as okay, here's a song now. What can we do to make it great?
Mhm.
What I'm just saying is that the original version of Sentimental Lady, it's not like a drastic change. It's very recognizable. It's just
Mhm.
interesting that it took it being re-recorded for it to be a hit.
I don't know.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, Hypnotized is a fantastic song. And then you go back to the Bare Trees album, and Christine's got a song, Spare Me a Little of Your Love, which other people like Johnny Rivers and Jackie DeShannon recorded like that. People recognize that these songs had hit potential. It's just that they weren't hits, right? But yeah, it's so the fates that came together to bring Stevie and Lindsay into Fleetwood Mac, because Fleetwood Mac, like I said, record companies did allow you to put a lot of albums out if as long as you just sold so many. You didn't have to be, back then you didn't have to have gold platinum albums every time, but there would have come a time when Warner would have said, look, it's just not going to happen, right? So as much as obviously it was just good timing, because after I'd been way underway with the book, this finally, for the first time,
Oh.
gets an official reissue, and so I added a not a sidebar, but it's like an extra chapter on this because I have to talk about it. It's like the Fleetwood Mac album that isn't, right. It's not quite Fleetwood Mac, but I say that you could put this album on if you had a bunch of people over for dinner or whatever, and you were
It's
just
pretty
playing.
close.
You were playing some music. Most people would probably think, "Oh, this is Fleetwood Mac. I just don't know these songs." They wouldn't give it a second thought. So the merger needed to happen to save both of their careers, because that album, Buckingham Nicks, was a flop. Even though, I mean, you had Keith Olsen producing, you had
Yeah.
Waddy Wachtel, you had Jerry Scheff, Jim Keltner, you had huge session names on that. It had Polygram Records, and that would have remained a curio for just big major like music scholars to talk about what a great album that was, had it not been for the fact that they 2 years later found themselves in front of the stage with one of the biggest bands in the world, right?
Yeah.
But it saved Fleetwood Mac's career too, because they were slowly gaining traction in the States, but it just wasn't happening. I don't think it would have happened to that level. It's pretty amazing when you track the trajectory of their career, how it kind of goes.
Yeah, I think a lot of people give Lindsay and Stevie the credit, but I think it was more than that. I think it was Stevie. I think it really was Lindsay and Christine McVie. I think that combination, which was really magic.
Yeah,
And
Christine.
once you
Yeah,
had Stevie and Lindsay in there with Christine, who was a powerhouse vocalist, songwriter in her own right,
yeah,
it was magic. That's
yeah.
how I
Christine.
look at it.
Christine provided on those Bob Welch albums. If you're just going back listening to them, she's the familiarity. Because you hear her sing and it's unmistakable. So yeah, she was there all along, and she was always like the dependable singer-songwriter that could be counted on for good songs. She didn't have the baggage, even though she did. It just wasn't as publicized as Stevie and Lindsay did, but she could always be counted on for some great songs.
Yeah.
So when you've got three writers and three singers, it was almost like getting three bands in one. And yeah, Lindsay and Christine, Don't Stop and Hold Me. I mean, they sound fantastic together. So, but yeah, Lindsay provided the glue, and boy, was, they really, and I think they knew this when he left after Tango in the Night was recorded, didn't do the tour.
Yeah.
It was immediately noticeable. I mean, they got capable. They had Rick Vito and Billy Burnett, good guitarists,
Sure.
Capable singers. But when Behind the Mask came out, I remember, long before I was into the band, that album was in the delete bins. I saw that within.
Yeah, I think it went right to the cutout bins for sure.
That was a delete bin special. I mean, I think that "Save Me" was a fantastic single from that album, and I think that's the one saving grace of that album. But it just overall, when you listen to the songs that Christine and Stevie don't sing, There's no Fleetwood Mac identity there. It's too country or something when you
Yeah,
get the Billies. But now, having said that, and I don't want to give too much away,
right.
fast forward to 1995 when they put that album out, Time, which almost nobody knows about. It was an invisible album. I say in the book, I had started working in radio by then, and I didn't know Fleetwood Mac had an album out in 1995. That's how dead in the water that one was. As far as I'm concerned, there is one decent song on that album, and I won't even say which one I think it is. I don't think I'm saying anything most people haven't said. A lot of people do not like that album, but so Behind the Mask is okay. Compared to Time, it is a masterpiece.
At least, when you look at the album cover of Behind the Mask, it looks like a Fleetwood Mac album.
It looks like a Fleetwood Mac album. I look at it
and I'm going, this could be anybody.
Well, the Fleetwood Mac, the Behind the Mask is funny because at first you think it's them, and you go, well, wait a second.
It's not.
That's just random people, right? And we talked about that on one of the Contrarian shows. It's like, who are these people on this cover? Because they're not the people that it says they are. But yeah, Time is practically invisible. I mean, that album had a worldwide peak of 47 in the UK. I mean, it was and I don't know about this, Grant, but I have to think, like, I know that the 90s were the time for reunions, Eagles and Kiss, and, but, and so I think the Fleetwood Mac reunion of the best known lineup is going to happen. But I have to think that after the Time album, that Warner Brothers went to make Fleetwood and said, look, you do what you have to do to get Lindsay and Stevie back, or you're off the label. Like, can you imagine, if that hadn't happened, that Fleetwood Mac would have put like albums out on CMC International or Sanctuary. They'd have been dropped down because they were doing multi-act bills in 95, and they never had to do that. Once they became big, they were the headliner. They never had to share a stage with anybody, but they're doing like, multi-act.
I couldn't even imagine that.
They got knocked down big time with that album, and I hate to say it, but deservedly so. It sucks. I mean, it's just it, and like I said, now maybe somebody out there likes it, and look, changed my mind about it, but I listened to it, and I'm listening to it thinking, this is just generic country, adult contemporary. It could be anybody. There's no identity at all, except for the songs that Christine provided the only shafts of hope on that, but fortunately, they kind of righted the ship. I mean, it's a complicated story of this band. I don't really go into that. This is about the music, even though, real life obviously informs the music from time to time. But hopefully somebody can listen to this and go, okay, now I think I understand at least the order these things came out in, right?
Right. And I think that's what's great. You're not going, it's not a biography. This is a true music book for people that are into music and really care about the catalog. And hey, it's a great idea to pick this book up, everybody. If you're trying to get into Fleetwood Mac, you may just know the Stevie and the Lindsay era, but what about that Peter Green era? What about the Bob Welch era? I remember when Stevie, I always was under the impression that, even though we were talking about that, from 68 to 75, they put out all those records. But when that 1975 album, when Rumors came out, it's like, that was like the beginning of the band. A lot of people thought that was the beginning. Yeah. And what came before, kind of forgotten. But there are those people. There are hardcore Peter Green people that won't accept anything other than the
listen,
Peter Green era.
If you got into the band in the late 60s, like primarily in the UK, but there were people in the US listening. I mean, Aerosmith, Joe Perry was a huge fan of that stuff. But to people like that, those purists, that's Fleetwood Mac.
Yep.
And the rest of that, that's that ridiculous commercial stuff.
That's just the pop band.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
But man, yes, they wrote pop songs, but man, were they good pop songs. Like just little 3.5 minutes of perfection.
Hey, even that Peter Green stuff, when he was writing stuff for singles, Green Man Alicia, come on. That was just a single.
Well, see, that's the thing. That's most... Like I said, a lot, probably most people think that Santana wrote and originally did Black Magic Woman. There's probably a lot of Judas Priest fans that don't realize that the Green Man Alicia
Mm-hmm.
with the two-pronged crown is a Fleetwood Mac song. And man, that's a heavy song for 1969. I mean, I remember
Great.
thinking when I first started listening to it, I'm like, that could have been on the first couple of Sabbath albums. I mean, it's dark and menacing and creepy in all the best ways. So yeah, it's a rich catalog. And Oh Well is one of those songs that a lot of people know. Not everybody knows what it's called, and not everybody knows who it is. But when you hear it, you go, "Oh, it's that song. I like that song." A lot of people have done that too, but you can't bet. No one's better than the original.
A lot of people may think that you can listen to the live album, and they do Oh Well. Even though,
Yes.
hey, I will say, I am not knocking down Lindsey, but Lindsey Buckingham as a guitar player is absolutely brilliant. And his version, along with the band, that live version really.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
And that song survived. That's the one song from the Peter Green era that I think every guitar player that came through did it, because I mean, like Rick Vito did it in concert. I think that Mike Campbell did it, like when they were,
Oh, I'm sure.
their
probably,
last tour that they did. Well, because I know Tom Petty used to do it live too. So, but yeah, that's a song but there's also a version of, it's on the deluxe version of the Fleetwood Mac live album of Lindsey doing the Green Manalishi, which is really cool.
Yeah, I knew that they did that. I don't think
Yeah.
I've ever heard that.
It's also on, let me see, I think it might be on the Mirage Tour CDs that came out a couple years ago. But yeah, there were a few of those songs that survived, but Oh Well was the one that consistently showed up in set lists, which is kind of cool because it was like that nod to that period. But I think there should be a wider look at their entire career, especially those Bob Welch albums. Like there's like we said, there's so many of them. Where do you start? Personally, I'd start with Bare Trees. I think that's a great record. Never mind the boring cover. It's a good album. Like it's good. Sunny Side of Heaven, nice little instrumental on there. The title song is really cool. Danny Kirwan doesn't get enough credit either. I mean, he was kind of a mini genius, and he kind of kept the torch going. Jeremy Spencer was more of the blues purist, and he was all over the place with his songs. If you listen to the Kiln House album, that song Blood on the Floor, that could be Hank Williams. I mean, that's an old country ballad. And then he's got This Is the Rock, which sounds like an Elvis song. So it's just weird, but it's all under the banner of Fleetwood Mac. So yeah, I wanted to say, here it is, and it's all Fleetwood Mac. It just depends on which era of it you want to tackle next.
All right, cool. There it is, the sound that haunts you. Beginner's Companion to Fleetwood Mac. Get yours today. Where can people find this book, Tim?
All of my books are through Amazon, and after this came out, they decided to drop the prices on all my previous books. So
because you keep,
I guess, yeah,
publishing.
And actually, if I can say this, Grant, I've actually got a little contest on right now. But people can go to my YouTube page and also any of my socials to find out about that. But it's a chance to win a bit of a Fleetwood Mac prize pack.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, we'll put the link to Tim's YouTube channel down below. It's probably already there anyway. It's already on there. Go down and check Tim's YouTube channel for that prize package, and go check out the book. Get it today, kids. Support Tim anyway. Even if you may know Fleetwood Mac, get the book. All right, cool. Anything else you want to add? We can wrap this dog up, Tim. Anything else?
No, I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure, Grant, being on. We'll do this again. And as you know, I've always got more books in the hopper, and you were involved with what is going to be the next one, but we're not going to talk about that just yet. But so we're going to keep it. I don't see any reason to stop. But yeah, thanks for having me on for this.
We'll have Tim back. We'll have Tim back when the next book comes out, which I'm very anxiously awaiting.
Yes. Me too. I'm gonna push this one as long as I can, but yeah, it's next in line.
Little bit of a tease, and I won't give anything away, but I don't recall that there's ever been anything done on this band to this extent.
I don't think so. No.
I'll just leave it at that for everybody. I'm not saying a word, but look forward to this upcoming book. But in the meantime, get Fleetwood Mac, the sound that haunts you. So, all right, Tim Durling, thanks for doing this. We will be in touch, and Oh, I probably
Go
should go listen to some damn Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, listen to some Fleetwood Mac. Yeah.
All right, kids. All right, so please like, subscribe. I'll give you the spiel. If you'd like to be on these panels, even though this isn't a panel show, we'd love to have you. We have a Patreon if you'd like to support the channel that way. That would be appreciated. We also have a Ko-fi. Buy us a pint or a cup of coffee. We'd appreciate that. The whole goal with the Contrarians really is to turn you on to music and talk music. And what a better book. Come on. Hell, get any of Tim's books if you haven't. Anyway, we'll see you on the next one, Tim. I'll try to get this up pronto. And we'll see you. See you, everybody.